Hey guys, if you don't know me, my name is Zach. Just wanted to make a quick little video talking about my wife and I's recent trip to New York City. It was the first time for both of us, and it was the most amazing time. We had so much fun, saw some really cool people, some of our friends. Got to photograph a wedding, the most beautiful wedding ever. And then we also got to do a whole ton of touristy things. We had 2 whole days to just kind of run around, do the city up. So I just want to kind of talk about the trip, talk about how we had such a good time, what led up to us getting to go photograph a wedding there, and just how amazing it was. So the reason we got to go on this trip is because we are wedding photographers, and there's this circle of friends. It started with our friends Sarah and Tom, who we met photographing their wedding up in Charleston, South Carolina. So Sarah and Tom sent me a message, and we're like, hey, we're kind of interested, we like your work. We hit it off, and we're friends and stuff, and so they decided to book us. So we went up to Charleston, photographed their wedding, and I guess a lot of people there thought we did a great job. And from that wedding so far, we've booked 4 other travel weddings with that same friend group. It's how we got to have a wedding down in Mexico last September. We had a wedding in St. Augustine this past November. We have another one coming up in Charleston, and then obviously we had a wedding in New York City, all because of this one crazy thing. You know, maybe I spent $5 on a Facebook ad, even if I'd spent $200 on a Facebook ad. Crazy, just the trickle effect. So we left Thursday morning around 6 a.m., Ubered to the airport like you do. We wound up getting to the apartment at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which was actually the couple's apartment. It was a Jewish wedding, and so traditionally they're not supposed to see each other for a week before the wedding ceremony. And so they said, hey, we're gonna both be in separate hotel rooms. How about you guys stay in our apartment? And we said, that's great. It'll save them money. They won't have to pay to put us up somewhere. And also, it'll feel very similar to an Airbnb, and it totally did. So it was awesome that we got to stay there. It was very authentic. 6 o'clock that night was their welcome drinks and henna ceremony. The welcome ceremony was super cool. There was a ton of guests there, super excited for Steph and Dave. So there was just all kinds of nationalities of people, French people, Australian, Moroccan, New Yorker. Madison and I took pictures. Towards the end, there was this awesome henna ceremony that I was not familiar with prior to this event necessarily, which is a Moroccan tradition where they take a big old glob of henna, put it in your right hand, and then tie it up with a ribbon into a little bow. And for the couple, it's to symbolize fertility, and for all the guests, it's to symbolize happiness, and I guess to bring happiness and stuff like that. They had lots of traditional Moroccan outfits called kaftans, I think, or maybe kaftan. I think it was kaftan. Was the guy's like wardrobe. It was not a skirt, not a dress, but I'll put a picture in. And then also some of the guys were wearing fezzes, which are those fun red hats that are kind of like a bucket on your head. So that was super cool. We had a great time being there and photographing that. But by the end of it, we were pooped because we had been traveling since 5 o'clock that morning, essentially, was when we left for the airport. And by the time we left the welcome drinks, it was probably 10 p.m. So we left, stopped by a pizza place on the way home, which was okay. You know, after we had some other New York pizza, we found out that where we went wasn't very good. But the whole point of it was to just find somewhere efficient that was between where we were and our apartment. And we sure did that. Night 1, done. We were pooped. The next day, which was Friday, we woke up and we felt so awful. We were exhausted, our bodies hurt all over. We were just like, freaking, this stinks. So despite wanting to sleep until like noon or whatever, we got up at about 8:30 in the morning, and we're out by 9:30 after Madison got her makeup and hair done. You know, we got all dressed and stuff, and we headed out to the city. Funny enough, around us, there was a bunch of breakfasty places, but none that really hit the spot. So we wound up walking about a mile away after going by Starbucks, and we went by a cool little corner convenience store that had a ton of magazines. If anybody could let me know why magazines are still relevant and popular in New York, there was actual magazine stands like all around. Maybe I'm just ignorant, I don't know, but I don't get it. I've never wanted to grab a magazine and read it, you know, except for maybe at a doctor's appointment, because I'm bored and don't feel good. So we're walking around New York. We finally get to this breakfast place. We have delicious food. I found some grits. You know, you can't usually find those outside of the South. which we were definitely not in. At this point, we had kind of walked a little upper downtown Manhattan, and Madison really wanted to go do some thrift stores because how cool to go to thrift stores in New York. And so there was some around us. There was a couple, like an actual Goodwill. There was some vintage stores that were pretty cool. Had a little bit of success. Didn't find it to be anything we couldn't have found in Pensacola. I didn't find anything, but I generally don't get stuff at thrift stores because I don't really get clothes. After thrifting, we had already kind of worked our way more upper, lower Manhattan, closer to Central Park, and I had wanted to see the Flatiron Building because I thought, oh man, this is such an iconic building. You've seen it in a billion movies, you know, it just kind of seems like it'd be really neat. And so at that point, we were maybe 6 blocks away, so we went ahead and walked over to it. Kind of underwhelming. Sorry, New York, we didn't just get in the best angle to appreciate the flatness of it, but I feel like even if we had, after this we decided to start making our way to Chinatown, but before we actually got to actual Chinatown, we were really close and convenient to Casey Neistat's studio. If you don't know who Casey Neistat is, he's an awesome YouTuber. It was so neat to get to see his studio and be just right there because I recognized, you know, all of around us from his videos. So we did that. We went over to Chinatown and we kind of wanted to buy a fake bag. And so we're walking by these Chinese ladies and we're like, bag? Can you help us find a bag? And obviously we did this with no tact, and it was kind of my fault. I was just trying to help us like get along with the process, because when we first got off the subway, this lady that was standing there was like, you want bag? And I said, no, we're good, because we were gonna go ahead and go by Casey Neistat's place. So by this point, we were like, can you help us find a bag? And they were like, no, and like kind of shoot us on. So we keep walking down the street and we're like, I don't know, maybe we'll come across somebody else. Maybe we'll just give up, whatever. And then one of the ladies breaks off from that group and she's like, hey, you looking for a bag? We're like, yeah, that's what we said, yeah. So she's like, come with me. And this lady, this tiny lady wearing a Gucci hat, is booking it down the street. And she takes us maybe 10, 12, 15 blocks away and through all the people. We are in what feels like where the Chinatown, you know, natives live. It takes us up to this fruit stand that has a big old van right behind it. It's speaking in Mandarin and clearly says something like, they want to buy a bag. So the other lady that was already standing there manning the fruit cart turns around to the van, pulls out this little menu looking thing, different fake Gucci bags, Louis bags, Burberry, you know, all the different brands that you can find and that you would maybe want a fake bag of. Hands it to Madison and is like, which one you want? Which one you want? Trying to be very quick about it. And so we were like, okay, calm down. This felt like, oh, what is going on? So Madison is like pointing at one and is like, how much? And she's like, $190. And we weren't planning on spending that. We budgeted like pretty tight for this trip. So the lady's like, oh, how about this other bag? I'll do it for like $110. And Madison was like, oh, I don't want to spend that much. And then the lady's like, okay, how much do you want to spend? And Madison was like, oh man, I was hoping to not spend more than like $30. The lady is pissed and snatches the menu thing out of Madison's hand, is angry in Mandarin. And we just continue on our day. And Madison's feelings were kind of hurt because the lady like snatched it and she was like sassy and stuff. Later we found out by talking to one of the couples that we know at the wedding that maybe those bags were real and like stolen. We left Chinatown. We went down to the stock exchange, which let me tell you, the huge ad on the front of the stock exchange ruined any picture. I mean, Genie's advertising because you could not get a picture without the ad. You could not appreciate the building, you know, or this is the stock exchange. After the stock exchange, right by there is the bronze bull, and the gimmick of the bull, you're supposed to go grab the bull's balls, which he has. And so, boy, did we do that. It's supposed to mean good luck, I guess, you know, financial success. After that, we just kept walking south. Our goal was to get to Battery Park. We wanted to see the Statue of Liberty, but we didn't want to go on a whole ferry tour or whatever, we figured it'd take an hour, and that from Battery Park we could just be like, ah, that's the Statue of Liberty. But on our way back, we saw the Impractical Jokers filming, cracking up, just dying laughing. And so it was the kind of thing where one of them will go walk around the park and go up to a stranger and say, hey, would you sign this petition for dogs to not be moms with babies? I don't know. At one point, they like finished a shot or a segment or whatever. We were like, wow, this is a real TV show filming in New York, and we're nearby it. After walking all the way down to Battery Park, it was time for us to head back to the apartment. We wanted to change clothes because we were seeing a show that night, Dear Evan Hansen. So we got on the subway, got back to the apartment and changed clothes and stuff, and then went ahead towards the show. We eventually got there like 7:15, 7:20, and we waited around for a little bit, got to go in, and wow, this show was amazing. Since sometime in middle school or the beginning of high school, I have had like a great appreciation for theater and just quality theater. The guy that plays Evan Hansen right now, his name is Andrew Feldman, and I'd never heard of him before. I haven't kept up too well with the social media of the show. He's like 16 or 17, junior in high school, and he was the most amazing performer I've ever seen. After the show, we got to standing around by the stage door. All but 2 people signed our playbill, and that was so cool to just get to see them real quick after the show and tell them good job. I had kind of a freak out, as I do sometimes when I see people that I really appreciate or am kind of in awe of, where I was just like, hey. So they probably thought I had something wrong with me, but that's cool because they signed our playbill. So who wins? Me. We got some McDonald's. That was the end of Friday. Saturday, kind of same deal. We got up, we felt horrible again. Got some more Starbucks, got another Monster. The plan for Saturday was to go to the Museum of Natural History right by Central Park, and that was amazing, but we had to stop and get breakfast first, and we went to an American classic. Tell me if you've ever heard of this place. IHOP, or IHOB, if you're throwing it back to what was relevant a couple months ago. Obviously there's a New York breakfast place you could go to, but we just wanted good old IHOP. Pretty good. It was IHOP, you know, you've been there. So then we went to the American Museum of Natural History, and it was just incredible. All these stuff about Teddy Roosevelt was really neat. Getting to see all the dinosaurs was amazing. We love Dino freaking sword. Madison was freaking out. She especially loves some dinosaurs, and I thought it was really, really cool too. We didn't have too horribly long at the museum. By the time we got there, it was about noon, and they closed at 5:45. And so, you know, we got to walk around a couple different exhibits and stuff. Some of them we did real slow, and like we read every single thing and appreciated it for a good bit of time. Others we kind of skimmed and were like, oh, that's that. That's that. So we left the Museum of Natural History as it was closing. They literally kicked us out. We headed down to Times Square because that was something that we hadn't done. Obviously, you got to go to Times Square. We were amazed and so surprised that it was actually really, really enjoyable and really cool and a fun time to get to look all around. We decided to go in a couple stores. We went by Sephora, the Disney store right there. We went into H&M where I got some pants and a shirt, which is really good because I never buy anything for myself. And so Madison was super happy that I actually got some clothes. She got a cool Metallica shirt. We did the most Zach and Madison Green thing ever, even crazier than us going to IHOP, was we went to Olive Garden in Times Square. Our New York friends were ticked off that that was the choice we made. But you know what? I enjoyed my breadsticks, and that's all she wrote. We took our leftovers, went ahead and headed back to the apartment because we didn't want to be out too late. It was maybe 10 o'clock at this point, and we headed back because the next day was the wedding day. Okay, so Sunday was the wedding day, and it was the most amazing wedding. It's getting so hard to rank my favorite weddings at this point because all of the travel weddings that we've done with this group of people, and just I guess the travel weddings in general, have just been on a completely different tier. Elegance and luxury almost. These weddings have just been insane. So I don't want to really rank it and say it was my third favorite wedding, or it was one of my favorites. It was one of the best weddings I have ever gotten to photograph, and super cool that it was our first Jewish wedding to photograph. We didn't miss it when they stomped on the glass. Got that photo. Super great. So started like a normal wedding, went to the hotel they were getting ready at. Madison and I were taking pictures of the bride getting ready and the details and the dress and stuff. And then we split up and I went down to the groom's room, got him getting ready and him hanging out with the guys. They took a shot like you do. And at this wedding, there was a video team of 3 people, which is awesome. And I cannot wait to see the video that they did because I was seeing behind their camera and they were all getting amazing stuff. But there was certainly times where it was like, excuse me, and we were all just moving around between each other. And it's always a balance working with videographers because both of your stuff, the photographer and the videographer stuff, so important and expensive to miss something. So, you know, I would never want to make them miss something at the expense of me getting it and vice versa, hopefully. But there was times where the balance was a little difficult. This is nothing bad with the videographers, of course. They were amazing and very professional. So we got them all ready and stuff. I left Madison with the bride, Stephanie, because I was going to go with the guys, and also I knew that she would be taken care of with her. So Steph wound up taking a cab up to the venue, which was all the way uptown New York, and the guys wound up taking the train. So I went with the guys and got some super cool photos of them riding the train. There was a funny moment where a panhandler, homeless man, was walking back and forth between the cabs asking for some money, and then he identified that we were like a wedding group, and he's like, "Who's the groom?" And David identified himself, and the homeless guy pulled out $1 and gave it to him, and it was like, "Congratulations, this is the best day of your life." And you know, David, perfect gentleman, obviously he doesn't need it compared to this guy. I was like, no better Australian accent than that because it's real, and mine is not, and horrible. But he was like, no, you keep that, mate. David, if you see this, please don't be offended. I'm doing my best. The guy was like, no, I insist, you take this. And so, you know, it was just interesting experience and cool, and also like, guys got some heart. What a trooper. So we eventually get there, and then Madison had stayed with Steph to photograph her like getting into the cab and walking along the streets of New York. She really stopped traffic, and they were both just in the middle of the road. So super neat that we were both like shooting at the same time. Always love when that happens. And that I knew that Madison was in good hands in New York, and that group of friends would make sure that like she was protected and didn't have to go anywhere by herself and stuff like that. So we all eventually get up to Fort Tryon Park, Linden Terrace, which is where the ceremony was, featuring a reception at New Leaf Restaurant, which was beautiful. It was the most perfect venue for a reception ever. There was a beautiful clear tent outside, surrounded by lots of greenery, and the actual ceremony space was in a bunch of trees overlooking a lake or a river or something. I'm not really sure, but it was just all so perfect. The lighting and stuff was beautiful. The ceremony was amazing. All the guests looked really good. The couple was just beautiful, and so we had the best time photographing that. I just cannot stress how perfect it was. Steph started like being teary. So in Jewish ceremonies, there's a couple different interesting things that you don't normally see. Like towards the beginning of it, Steph walked around David 7 times, which I imagine is supposed to represent the Israelites walking around the walls of Jericho till it fell. There was 7 blessings where 7 different people read, sang some blessings in Hebrew, and then the rabbi also did some of the reed singing blessings prayers. Towards the end, obviously David stomped on the glass, and you go Mazel Tov, and everybody was stoked, and then they kissed. These newlywed portraits we gotta take are my favorite newlywed portraits of all time, I imagine. We took them all over Linden Terrace. There was a couple of arches, staircases. We took them down to this awesome tunnel, and the lighting was so good. I was just like, this is a dream. We are living a dream, and we're getting to photograph it. It was amazing. We kept them out a little past when the wedding planner wanted us to have them back because of dinner and stuff, but no regrets. I had to get those epic photos, and I would not do it differently again. The reception was so much fun, and they started the, as soon as they were announced, they did the hora, which is where you hear 1,000. It was insane. The guys were in a big circle, and the ladies were in a big circle with Steph and David in the middle of each. and the guys were, it was like a freaking mosh pit. They were throwing each other all around. At one point they picked David up and threw him up into the air. They did the chair thing that you see all the time and like hear about. They actually had David fall off at one point, but then they were both up. Steph was like terrified the whole time, looked super scary, which I can imagine because she had just watched David fall. That was kind of the end of the horror, was like everything started to calm down, and then they had a multi-course meal and stuff. It was beautiful. They had dancing, speeches, classic reception. We bust out towards the end of the ceremony, and then comes the sparkler exit. Everybody was not in their most focused state. People had had some drinks and stuff, but it's usually what we're used to dealing with. But a funny variable right then was that it had just started to rain, just like a light drip, you know, enough that you didn't want to go stand outside unless you had to. And so what I was trying to do was get everybody to grab their sparklers and hang out inside until the couple was ready, which usually takes, you know, a minute or two past how long it takes to get the people lined up. So I was like, you wait inside until the couple's ready. We'll go outside, and in like 20 seconds, I'll place everybody. We'll have them walk, and then we'll all come back inside. I was like, okay, everybody, let's go outside, let's go outside, let's start getting in places. People started getting ready, and then I turned around at one point towards the end of the line of people, and like 20 people had already lit their sparklers, and I was like, oh my gosh, no. And these were short sparklers. They were like minute-and-a-half ones. There's some 3-minute ones you'll see at weddings sometimes, and those are great because you can do the exit like 1,000 different times. And honestly, most of the time by the end of them, people are like, okay, what am I going to do with this sparkler? It's still going. It's got like a minute left. But these people were already a quarter of the way through their minute-and-a-half sparklers. And so I was like, we got to go. And so there was other people that were just kind of dilly-dallying, standing around in the middle of the line. And I was like, there's no time. You got to get in line now. Stat. Come on, move, people. And so luckily Madison had also noticed the situation kind of unfolding and started shoving Steph and David towards the exit. She didn't even have time to get around to them to, usually we'll take pictures side by side because sparkler exits are kind of tricky with autofocus and stuff like that. So you want to be sure you have another shooter right there to make sure you get, you know, a couple good photos that aren't blurry and you're smiling and stuff like that. She didn't even have a moment to get around them and shoot it with me. So luckily it turned out pretty good. So luckily it turned out really good, and by the time we were like, stop and kiss, and they were stopped, and like he dipped her and they kissed for a second or two, some people's sparklers were already starting to go out. And so I was like, thank goodness we got some photos real quick before everybody's sparklers went out, and it was starting to rain, so they were kind of being accelerated, I guess. But then we got people in, people started Ubering home. We walked to the train station and then took the late night train all the way back to the apartment we were staying at, rested our little footsies. I started copying over photos, and we found out we took almost 9,000 photos that day, and I am excited and also nervous about editing all these photos because I know that they're gonna get like an obscene amount of photos. That was it for like the wedding day. It could not have been more beautiful. Our last day there was the day after the wedding, so Monday. We got up early-ish again, started packing, got our Starbucks, got a Monster, and then they were hosting a farewell picnic for all their guests. Figured that would be our breakfast, and so we went ahead and went over there. We had some New York bagels, said bye to all our friends, Steph and David, Sarah and Tom, our friend Dan. Didn't get to see our friends from Mexico, Heather and Matt, because they had an early flight back to Singapore, but you know, that's okay. We said bye in our thoughts, I guess. That was it. You know, we kind of left. We walked back by the Museum of Natural History just so Madison could wave bye and think about all the cool dinosaurs that are in there, and she started, you know, getting a little teary, almost cried, but we continued on our way. Went back to the apartment, finished packing up and stuff, and our goal was to just get done as soon as possible because our flight this time was out of LaGuardia instead of JFK, which is, you know, what we had been familiarized with. And so we were like, we don't know if it's going to be different. Everybody said, you want to stay away from LaGuardia, it's under construction, and we're like, our flight's out of LaGuardia and we can't change it. Really glad that we got there so early because security wound up taking about an hour and a half or so. And we got there about 4 hours before our flight, and so standing in line at security and seeing how massive the line was, and we had no idea how long it was going to take, I was stoked that we got there so early because it meant there was essentially no way that we could miss our flight due to security line. We eventually made it through. There was a lady behind us in line on the phone the whole time, very, very loudly into her AirPods, talking about her life, and we found out some crazy details. She's about to break up with her boy. So if you're her boy, watch out. That's pretty much it. We made our way home. We had to stop in Atlanta, and then our flight from Atlanta to Pensacola was delayed a little bit. And by that point, I had the worst headache. I was just so tired. I was just like, can we please just be home? I'm tired of airports. It's hot. But we made it home. One thing I really want to talk about New York was the creative energy and the grind hard or kind of die hungry mentality. It felt like every single person had, like even the panhandler, homeless people were working hard at it. It was so amazing to see the pace of the city and how everybody's just like going, working, because it really seems like you gotta, like with the cost of rent and the cost of living in New York City, you gotta work super hard or you can't afford to exist there. And so being creatives who own our own company, it was super inspiring to me to feel like we could do that. Like, this isn't us saying that we're moving to New York, but how can we take that kind of energy and that need to work super hard or be hungry and not have a place to sleep mentality and bring it home with us and just let that like kind of infect our businesses. And so, you know, I've been kind of thinking like, how can I be more on top of the grind? Like a student athlete, grind never stops. No, because I can only imagine, you know, what crazy things could happen within my business, Madison's business, really anything we put our minds to, if we push so hard. Like if we don't succeed, that we would fail and we would not have a livelihood or a place to sleep or food to eat. And it was really, really amazing. And I hope I can keep that with me and us for a long time. That's why I'm making this video. You know, I intend to make a separate video just talking about the photography of it, our gear, and you know, how we got into the situation where we shot it and stuff, which I touched on a little bit here. This is something I wouldn't normally do, but it's kind of been on my brain since we got married, and on Madison's brain too. Like, what if we made YouTube videos and whatever? And it's kind of meta because I'm talking about this right now as it's happening. But like, I'm having a good time doing this. No one's home except for the puppies, and besides having to turn the AC off for the wind, like the camera noise, this is really awesome. And it's just the kind of thing that I imagine if we lived in New York and I had to pull out every single stop and like put as much focused effort into any category of thing that I think might be successful, that I would be like, let me try YouTube, you know, let me, you know, try to brand myself as a luxury wedding photographer and offer like a higher experience. Let me every single day reach out to somebody on Instagram or Facebook or whatever that, you know, maybe has a bit of followers or an interesting look or something, where it would grow me as a photographer but also give me some reach into their social media following, you know, these influencers or at least people that have friends that, you know, care about their opinion and would maybe think that my photos were cool too. How can I bring that back to here? So that's just kind of something I'm processing. If you've experienced something like that, I would love to hear about it. If you're like, yeah, I had this crazy experience in this big city or New York also, and it kind of inspired me in this way, but I let it trickle out. Here's what you can do to fight it. Or, you know, if this reignites something for you, if you've been to New York, go for it. Steph and David's wedding was just the most elegant, beautiful thing. It was just amazing. And if I could turn it to be where I'm the kind of photographer that attracts other weddings like that, that would just blow my mind. And my job that's already not a job would go into being the easiest thing in the world. But also, obviously, I would still just go crazy with it and have the best time and so many cool experiences. Thanks for watching. I'd be really surprised if anybody gets to the end of this, but we had a good time. Maybe somebody can live vicariously through me talking about our New York trip. I don't know how long this video is going to wind up being, and at the very, very least, if nobody sees it, that's not the goal. I just kind of wanted to express all my thoughts and like get it on the video. If nobody sees it, then that's cool. And years from now, I'll have a day-by-day reminder of all the stuff we did, and that's something you don't really have from a lot of trips. Like, you'll have pictures, but the memories start to fade of how you felt and what it did for you, and, you know, stuff like that. If anybody knows of a 1-month lease or rental in New York that we could go do that wouldn't be too expensive, that sounds like an epic time, and I would love to actually go try it for a month. Don't know if that would work, but who knows, would be cool. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed me talking about our trip to New York. I hope to be back there soon. If you are a couple who is engaged, or you know somebody who's engaged, getting married in New York, Pensacola, really anywhere, Madison and I have no fears about traveling to any place. If you would just check out my websites in the caption of this, or the link in bio, or I don't know. I'm not really exactly sure how this all works yet, but it's thezachgreen.com, just my name, and to contact me you can email me, zach@thezachgreen.com. I give discounts for travel weddings to offset some of the travel costs, and I'd love to talk with you and hopefully get to share your amazing, beautiful wedding day with you, or your friend's wedding day or something, I don't know. Thanks for being you, and I'm glad I'm me, and I hope you have a great day.